Welcome. Thank you for joining this brief interview on TEAL. I'm Kimberly Breen, and I'm happy to be a partner with the SEL team. We're going to talk with a few people here today who have been through the TEAL trainings and are implementers. So I'm really excited to give you a little bit of a view into what this looks and feels like on a daily and weekly basis. Carla, would you please introduce yourself briefly and tell us a little bit about your TEAL journey?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Carla Cicada, and I have been working with the Whittier City School District for over 22 years as a teacher, education specialist, and now as a TOSA. And the TEAL journey started in our district about 2 years ago when a colleague invited me to a wonderful event, and we're just embraced and welcomed into this world with arts and music technology. And that journey really led to bringing in other members of our district, bringing in our administrators, and just continuing the work, whether we were in the classroom or working on professional development, or just implementing our own mini TEAL scale up journey and adventure with our teachers. And it continues now as we're working on the distance learning piece, and very grateful for this experience added to the toolkit, and super happy to share my experience with you today.
Awesome, Carla. Thank you. I love that your TEAL family sort of grew over time, right? You bring more and more people into the fold.
Absolutely. And our students are the ones who are really benefiting from this experience.
That's great. Jackie, can you say hi and let us know, how did you first get connected with TEAL?
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm Jacqueline McElvey from Claremont Unified School District. And like Carla, I've been in education for over 20 years. And my journey began with, there were only three of us, and we were the second cohort in TEAL. So we've been with TEAL for many years. And we were so excited to find out that our training was going to be at a museum. And right then, I knew it was going to be a fabulous journey. We began with three of us, which turned into bringing it back to a classroom, which turned into me being a coach at my site, which then it kept layering. It went to junior high school, and district. And now we're a great big community of TEAL and arts integration in our district. And the support is just unbelievable. And every time there's a TEAL training, we're so excited, because what we do is we take all the information, and like Carla's school district, we implement within our district right away.
I love that. Everyone will be so happy to hear you saying all of that, right? The idea of the work becoming bigger and bigger over time, and you all building capacity, which is awesome. So Carla, when you started, and maybe even still now, you were looking at your own classroom and your own students, and then you continue to spread that out. Could you talk a little bit about how does TEAL impact your role, and maybe tell us a little bit about the multiple hats you wear now, and maybe that you started off wearing when you first got started?
Absolutely. So my Whittier City journey really was in the classroom, both as an general education teacher and a special education teacher. And I did spend 5 years as a speech therapist. So those three layers together really taught and brought the importance of communication and collaboration. Our kids have a lot to say. They are storytellers, and always had that component of art. But when we were introduced to TEAL and talking about these different types of tools and interventions and strategies that we can bring in, and combining it with that social emotional piece of what we call in our district, connect before you communicate. When we start our classrooms and we start our PDs, really connecting with our audience, with our students before we communicate, it really flourished into an experience. It really flourished into, instead of having that teacher toolkit, it became more of, now we have this art studio. And whether we're online, whether we're in the classroom, we're able to just create with our kids and listen and really pause for that reflection. So as I was introduced to TEAL through the week-long Scale Up Academy, and learning from everyone from our museum experts to our Conga kids, it was just sort of building and have these conversations with our education, special education team, our education resources team. It really built into, okay, how can we bring this to Whittier City and spread this message, and how do we continue the work? And as Jackie was saying, the support that TEAL provided, and that coaching and that guidance, that mentoring, really let us kind of play with it, and I think we kept asking that question, what would our classrooms look like if we brought joy and fun and we let our children experience play? So our team, which was that small but mighty team, really looked at creating this TEAL experience, starting with a smaller cohort. So we did start with our mild, moderate educators, special education program, brought that to psychologists, social workers, administrators. And then soon we had this, over 100-person experience of really thinking, okay, this could go somewhere. And it did. It did. And even though the pandemic came in and, as we all know, just really turned everything upside down, we still had these pieces of, okay, we can do this online, we can do this virtually. So we started with more PD, learning more, adding to that toolkit, infusing it in different areas. And it brings us to where we are now we're seeing virtual talent shows and baking contests, wellness seminars, bringing in families in to make sure that they know how to navigate the holidays and this entire stressful time. And I feel as if that TEAL toolkit that really, it was sort of that starter kit that just said, okay, hey, here you go. And as we learn more and add more, that journey continues. And I'm happy to be part of it and to share it, especially with new teachers who are coming in.
Claremont, very similar to Carla's experience. It's really about capacity building, which is really exciting. Going from a team of 3 to taking it back, we actually did a professional development within maybe 3 weeks of training. But the saying is, there's no mistakes in art. And I think that saying, and after being at the TEAL training for the first couple of times, it gave us a sense of freedom and a sense of almost permission to engage kids in rigor in a different, joyful, fun way. And we liked it so much that we went to our own local museum and we invited all 7 elementary school teachers who wanted to come, and we used our TEAL funds to support substitutes so that they could come in and experience learning in the way that we learn through TEAL, and to bring this experience back into their classrooms. And it was such a hit, and we got such wonderful feedback that high school teachers began to reach out to us. So we formed what was called a SALT. So SALTs in our districts are site art lead teachers, and I'm one of them. So of every elementary school, we have one. And so now we have 7, since there's 7 elementary schools. And what we do is we go to the high school and we mentor high schools, and we work with them, and we look at their lessons, and we show them how to integrate art, music, theater, and dance into their programs to enhance learning for high school students. Likewise, we do that at the 7th and 8th grade level. So the importance of bringing the art integration back into the classrooms is really, it's not really top down or bottom up. It just started kind of like in the center, and it just blossomed into this community affair, and all of our kids have access to all of the TEAL strategies, and we're very grateful.
I see Carla connecting with what you're saying as well. And I love that both of your journeys are so different, but so similar in terms of sort of how TEAL empowered you to be able to take what was meaningful for you and take that out on a bigger, broader scale. So I want to hear a little bit more, and I want to hear both of you kind of comment on this idea of where you were building capacity across all staff. And then I love you went into across more schools as well. I love you're both commenting on using integrated arts instruction, which is just so powerful. And I think people need it now more than ever to really keep learning, engaging. And then I'd love to hear, I think you've both sprinkled in some other things as well, like social emotional learning. Maybe you've done this through a multi-tiered system of support or included some of your other sort of initiatives. Carla, are you resonating with that?
Absolutely. What Jackie was sharing also about the language we're using this. I see, I notice, I wonder. We talked about the oral storytelling, and TEAL really does a great job of sharing these models. So we had our teachers dig into the models that are in the different areas, whether it was media, whether it was dance. And there's always that way to just bring it back home, bring it back to your classroom, bring it back to your content area. And I think, lovingly, I say this in terms of, I think about this is the way. You know, we hear that phrase that's all over with our Mandalorian, and this is the way. This is the way, especially now when we need more healing. So I sort of looked at this as everywhere there's an opportunity, our students are given this canvas, whether they're creating online, whether they were in the classroom and we were running and doing these lessons. What I'm hearing from teachers, specifically those who went through TEAL and even those who didn't, but it's funny when they ask, like, well, what is TEAL? And it's that group that, you know, will get it, but just due to the situation, we haven't quite gotten there yet. And when they hear about it, that, you know, you just feel that connection right away. So when I hear teachers say, you know, we tried this art activity today and I checked in with them several times and more cameras came on, or I tried this activity with our staff and suddenly you get this level of trust and this joy and this connection. We're really seeing, and I like that you're saying, you know, we sprinkle it, you know, sort of, yes, we are sprinkling and planting these seeds as we go. And now we are seeing that innovation come in. We're getting that feedback. We're pausing more for that reflection. And in terms of the group that I work, which was the coaches or the TOSAs, you know, we've had that training together and we're able to sort of branch out. So I just love that the conversations continue and they add that layer of reflection and perspective and connection. And the big one, you know, we know our kids are going through so many issues right now, and it's the engagement piece. You know, seeing that student that's engaged and that's connecting. And I love that one of our middle school teachers, and we know that middle school can be tough, and that said, you know, I'm just so impressed that students want to connect after, you know, we've done this activity. They really want to connect and they feel that there's power and strength in the arts. And when we combine it with our book clubs and our social issues book clubs and our writing, it does become powerful. So I, again, grateful and recommend anything and everything that's related to TEAL. And I think Jackie had said, you know, that permission piece. And as we look at a little bit of the research we've been reading through the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, permission to feel. And on so many levels, permission to feel, and then bringing in that social emotional component and the CASEL core competencies, where our kids are not only engaging in art and our teachers, but we're noticing that level of regulation. We're noticing that level of stress management. And that really, really is confidence building to a student right now who's just sort of trying to find their way. So I repeat that this is the way when I talk about TEAL.
So I love how you're referencing social emotional learning as just sort of like seamlessly woven within the work, right? And I think a big part of a multi-tiered system of support is that we don't want people to feel like you have to stop and start the new initiative. So it's not like 30 minutes on PBIS and then 30 minutes with like academic RTI and then 30 minutes with arts integration, right? We actually want to try to do as much as we can in a seamless, integrated way, in part because it's easier for the adults, for teachers, and because it gets this like robust, engaging learning, like you were saying, whether it's online or in person. And I saw you nodding to that too, Jackie, about how this sort of integrates with your work. Could you comment a little bit more there?
Yes, it's very similar to what Carla said. But I think you've touched on a couple of really important issues. One of the issues that I find from the past, I guess it's from past experience. When I was in school, it was considered equitable. We all had the same materials, we all had the same book, we all took the same test. But through TEAL, I've realized and have a different understanding of what equity is. Equity isn't about the same materials, it's about receiving tools that help us learn in our own capacity. And what I mean by that is, I love the word seamless, because if you think about it in terms of art integration, dance, theater, that is equitable to everyone, because children are able to naturally um, get their feelings out in that kind of, in a way that they want to, and without judgment from others. And so our school has implemented PBIS. And so as a TEAL coach, what I do is I go into staff meetings, and we kind of have we spend a good 15-20 minutes talking about what are some issues, especially in the Zoom class, or I'm having a problem with this child, and what do you do? And so I can just share a simple check-in. So I did this at the last staff meeting, and I said, instead of when children come on and you call their name and they say here or they raise their hand, how about a check-in that is it gauges where they're at inside of their body, how they're feeling. And it can be as simple as this. Are you a river or are you a stream today? What are the characteristics of the river? Or what are the characteristics of the stream? Are you a fast flowing river? Are you wide? Are you long? Are you narrow? And then, or are you a bubbling stream? What color is the water? And then engaging them that way. So when you say, Zachary, today I'm a stream, it just takes a minute. And then what you could do with that is possibly a free write or a free draw. And then to incorporate dance. And I'm giving you a little mini lesson for SEL, but it's a really beautiful one. The kids will get up and what does your river look like? How does it flow? Is it in a low space? So now spatially within their own area of learning, they're able to move around their environment and get out the happiness, like a or the sadness or the dark or the bright, or you can really see the mood of the room. And I will tell you that almost every camera is on and the kids are so engaged. And it's very powerful. And for our attendance at Mountain View Elementary, where I teach, our attendance has gone up because kids are so engaged in this social emotional learning. Giving teachers strategies and tools to learn to teach during this very difficult time, but it also makes a connection. The kids are connecting with the world, they're connecting with each other, they're connecting in Zoom, and they're making connections where you don't really think they would. But it's so equitable, and I can't express that enough, that they're all doing it from their own feelings inside of their body.
I love that. Everyone gets what they need and can make out of it what they need it to be. And so I love that you're connecting, challenging behavior. We could handle it in a very direct way, and we could look for a PBIS strategy, and or we could partner across initiatives, across work, right, with colleagues with unique lenses, and you get this kind of social emotional mindfulness, movement, grounding activity, right? That acts as a behavioral strategy. And we hear her, Carla, too, right? Saying, and it increases engagement and attendance. And so I think sometimes people are looking for the list of an attendance intervention, and they need to hear these kinds of things as the best, most powerful attendance interventions you could ask for.
I'm going to say also, instead of the teacher coming up with the check-ins, then you can actually put it back on the kids, and they can do their two things, like I'm a snowflake or I'm a cabin or a house, or they come up with their own things and what they look forward to it. And so check-in becomes really, really fun in the mornings.
Jackie, it's like, we're right here. I'm connecting with it. The power of the check-in. And Whittier City School District, we did implement kind of like a designated SEL time that happens across the board from our pre-K, TK, all the way to our 8th graders. And I remember when that conversation first started in terms of what does this look like, now you see a variety of check-ins, and not just a check-in at the beginning of a session, but checking in throughout, using entrance and exit tickets. And there could be a pillow check-in with our little ones. It's like tap if you feel sunny and if you feel stormy, all the way up to our students thinking about, what about a Marvel check-in, or what about using emojis? So really speaking the language of whatever group you're working with, and the idea of it being seamless. And I love that. I think that first day that we were at the TEAL, the week-long scale-up event, they talked about braiding. And I remember looking at Diana Zalesny is our fabulous psychologist lead, and who heads up PBIS. And we just looked at each other and we just love that idea of braiding it and really communicating that to all of our educators, saying, SEL is not something added to the plate. It is the plate. And, we've included that quote in different memos and PDs and emails. And it really is starting to build in terms of, okay, this works together. And as we get that feedback from our teachers and getting that creativity in terms of PBIS, we've got these different virtual events going on, and that feeling of being seen and heard. I think that's one of the most important things in terms of our students showing up, engaging, connecting, is, do they feel seen and heard? And then on the flip side too, as educators, talking to them too, how does this make you feel? How do you feel when you're going through this with your day? And there's more questions in a really wonderful way from our educators, from our group, saying, what if we tried this? Or what if we connect in this way? Or I tried this and then looked at it from a different lens based on my audience, based on who's in my classroom. So I'm in love with the fact that I appreciate that these conversations continue, and that idea of braiding is looking at how can I embed a strategy within my writing. Our PE teachers had this really wonderful challenge at one of our middle schools where it was just sort of passing the ball and creating this video, and it looked as if all the students were passing on, care and love, and it was just a physical object, but it embedded theater, it embedded movement, and so activities like that keep popping up, and my mind goes to that week when all of this was happening in the months, and the Bitmoji. Teachers were just showing their creativity, their personality, and connecting with the Bitmoji. Talk about STEAM. Talk about really taking STEAM and embedding that SEL where you're bringing that sense of personality to your virtual classrooms or to your slides. So as I paused and reflect on where we were and where we are now, extremely proud of our educators across the board for being those innovators and for really looking at that wellness piece and asking that question of, okay, how are we going to continue this work and what other strategies can we learn, which feeds us to wanting to learn more.
Thank you both so much. I've loved all of these ideas. I've already grabbed some ideas from you that I can use with adult learners. The way that you just talk about using these arts-based strategies to also just make learners feel comfortable online. So we have a new group of people going through our TEAL training. And I'm sure they're trying to figure out how all this fits together and how to do it now during virtual learning. So any kind of closing thoughts to our new TEALers?
Well, I was going to share that first of all, your first experience is going to be wonderful. It's going to be from the lens of a student. And then you get the perspective of a teacher. So you're going to get both perspectives, and you're going to get all the tools that you need to have engaging, fun, enjoyable, and equitable lessons for all learners. The other thing I wanted to share is that the media arts is going to be really important in the 21st century for kids. In fact, more than 80% of the jobs out there when they graduate are going to be from media arts. And it's really easy to integrate into your curriculum. It might take a little bit of time at first, but then once you do it, and remember, there are no mistakes in art, meaning that if you make a mistake, the kids are really not going to know because it's art. And if you bring photography, just even a snapshot, and have kids talk about it or look at it and look more deeply into it, which you're going to learn how to do. There are stories in pictures. There are stories in history and painting. Students can tell a story with media arts. And the really beautiful thing is that they're going to learn the language for technology for the 21st century. In the jobs that are out there, and they're going to be able to do it efficiently. And you're going to have more engagement and more participation from students, but not only students, possibly parents and your community. I know that in Claremont, we take all of our projects that we have done with art integration from TEAL and created beautiful programs. We're paired with Directing Change. We did a mental wellness. We've done it 2 years in a row in Claremont. It's a 6th grade project, but we've taken the media arts to the next level, and it's doable on Zoom as well. In fact, right now we're doing a film project at our site, and all the kids are learning the tools of technology from TK all the way up to the 6th grade. So you are going to get so much out of TEAL. You're going to enjoy every second that you're there. And these are going to be tools and strategies that you can take back to your classrooms, into your Zoom class, and use immediately. And hopefully for you, it'll become more global like it is for us.
Jackie, agree 100%, and especially looking at what you're already doing. I think if I had advice, as we're working with our new teachers through induction programs, new teachers within our district, is really looking at what are you doing? What are you doing in your classroom? And then matching that up with those core competencies and those sub skills of regulation, of management, and thinking, okay, how can I sort of TEAL this? So not adding that extra pressure. We are in this distance world right now. So that space and grace is really important, not only with our students, but with ourselves. So really looking at what are you doing already, and how does that fit in with that, with the core competencies, to then again integrate the arts and the social emotional learning. So the other piece that goes with this is really that process. I think, the process is just as important, if not more important, than the product. So as you're guiding your students through these art experiences, through these reading, math experiences, embedding a check-in. I mean, if that math problem is really giving us a tough time, let's do a check-in. How does that math problem make you feel right now? Suddenly you've added that layer of growth mindset when you're having students tackle something that's really difficult, and letting them know it's okay, we're working through this together. So that checking in constantly, that connecting before you communicate with your students. And the other piece that I think is really important is just really the seen and heard piece, acknowledging your entire classroom. It's so important that you check in with your students, that you say their names out loud, and that you bring also that cultural piece there, that every student has a story. And with that, our families as well. When I started in our school district, a few years back, we were at that one-to-one iPad experience, and we still continue that. But now we've got more tools, more apps, more subscriptions. And it's this idea of not just having an app and figuring out, well, how does this work? It's how are we going to use this to enhance what we already have? How are we going to use this and embed that layer of self-care, of social, emotional, and also growth mindset? So our students are not sort of letting that app happen to them or letting that assignment happen to them, but they're now interacting with it. And you're creating not only a safe space for this when students are understanding that it's okay, that this is difficult or hard, or I'm having a bad day, but creating a brave space. And I think that's one thing that TEAL really taught us throughout, not only that week long, but the follow-up sessions, all that support, was safe space and brave space. And I think I'm noticing now that teachers, and I appreciate, are really creating spaces within their chats, very creative ways of how to interact. When maybe you've got kindergartners who may not utilize a chat on Zoom. That's where those check-ins, those interactives, those freezing, those theater pieces come in, tableaus, drumming using instruments. So it sounds as if it's so many pieces, like, well, how can I implement this in one day? It's knowing your audience, knowing your students, connecting with them, trying something out more than once, and just really pausing for that reflection and thinking, how did that go? And asking your students, how did that make you feel? And that will be a really big indicator of, okay, where should we go with this? And we've noticed that students are really willing to share and say, ooh, what if we do this next time? As I've gone into classrooms, they'll give me the feedback. And I think that's the really big piece after the session. When you're doing that exit check-in ticket, anyone else want to share something? And it also kind of piggybacks off of those norms that you have. We all go into meetings with norms, but kind of turning it on our students and saying, what would you like out of this experience? And I think that's a lot of power in giving students that voice as well, and that choice in voice that we talk about when we're doing our reading literature, our informational text. We want them to be able to feel as if, wow, I get a part in this, I get a say in this. So the big message is not to overwhelm yourself, to have fun, and just create that space, get as creative as you can. And I love this phrase that I keep hearing, is embellish the positive. So really that emotional contagion, as we smile with our students and bring them in and add that layer of warmth and care, they'll come into that world. And when we go back, it's there. You have these pieces, and now we get to play with more space. So I welcome everyone to just really dig into the work and look at what you're already doing.
Please.
I love the brave space. And you'll find once you start to dig in that your students are going to feel really safe, and especially because of the word you touched on, Carla, which is cultural. Because culturally, when you're looking at a piece of art, or you're doing a movement, or you're bringing in your own values, your family values into it, and what's really beautiful about it is students begin to find connections with other students, which does help create that brave space. And it also shares in a beautiful way the differences that we all have. And so students become more aware in a different kind of a way. But brave space is one of those, and cultural elements, especially in the world that we're living in right now, are really, really important for kids to feel connected to one another.
You all are, making our audience feel connected just in hearing from you. Thank you for being so generous in sharing your personal experiences, giving lots of strategies just in the short amount of time that they could use themselves. Thank you for making it how clear everything is braided and connected together. And I love how, just in this little dialogue, we're covering cultural responsiveness and equity, social emotional learning, positive behavior support, right? And all while covering academic content with strong instruction, and trying to get engagement and improve attendance online. So you have my mind spinning on this as well. And we're really glad that everyone got to hear from folks who have been through these trainings, and who are obviously still hard at work doing it. Thank you both, and thank you for your teams as well for all the amazing work you're doing throughout your schools, throughout your districts, and really for leading the way for all of us of what education can be.